tens of thousands of animals die in Miami Dade County each year. Many are euthanized at the county shelter, and an untold number die on the streets.
These puppies here were
In the United States, the number of animals being killed is in the millions. The killing has gone on for decades. In transient, multi-ethnic Miami, where America is redefined every day, animal activists, concerned citizens, and elected officials came together and devised a plan that would get a handle on animal population and begin to put a dent on the number of animal deaths. This is the story of that effort and the effects its outcome had on the residents of South Florida and the voiceless victims, the animals. Redland, Florida is 20 miles southwest of downtown Miami. It is primarily an agricultural area. It is also a dumping ground for unwanted pets. Animal overpopulation and abandoned pets are not only a problem for Miami-Dade County, it is a national epidemic.
We have to go every day. It's imperative that someone go feed every day, just as though it was your home, an animal at home. That's the only way we can keep track of what's going on with the animals. It's also the only way for us to actually promote and get them rescued.
We need all of it. It's hot. They need water.
The animals are out there. I cannot look into those eyes every day and not put a voice to it. If they could speak for themselves, oh, what they would say about us. And it won't all be nice. And what's very, very sad is that even the most broken one of those animals looks at us and says, thank you, baby Jesus, I'm in air conditioning, I've got food, thank you for coming. You'll see this today. When we come and go and feed, they're waiting.
These dogs are actually abandoned. They were left here about 3 weeks ago. And now we have been feeding them. Obviously, if we don't come feed, they're not gonna eat. They're not gonna get anything for the day.
I have no problem with it. I am the crazy dog lady, according to my family. I mean, I think all of us.
Well, yes,
we ride
have
around.
to be.
I ride around. I have a pretty dog food container. It's in my car. It stays in my car. I never take it out. I have a jug with water in it. I have cat food. I have a container with cat food. I have little bowls. So if I'm driving, it doesn't matter if I'm going to work, if I'm leaving work, if I see a dog, the first thing I'm doing is pulling over. Most of the time they run, but that's okay. It's okay. They can run. We need them to be skittish when it comes to humans, because humans are the very thing that put them where they are.
I have just always been interested in helping the community when I see a problem. One of my very first things that I did when I lived in Miami was I realized where I lived they needed a stop sign, and nobody ever did anything about it. So I battled to get a stop sign, and I won. I thought, wow, this is great. So I became more and more involved in the community, and I really didn't know very much about the animal world or what was going on in the animal world. I didn't even know what a rescue group was about 4 years ago. But I had a chance to talk to the head of the Animal Services Director, and I asked him this haunting question, and I said, that building where the animal Services is that the building where you also kill the animals? And he said yes. And the very obvious next question was, how many do we kill a year? And he said about 20,000 last year. And I was just shocked. I have lived here over 30 years. I had no idea this was going on. And so, I roughly calculated that's 60, 70 every single day, every day. And I said, are they all sick? He said, no, none of them are sick, or not very many. So why do you do it? Well, there's just too many. The place only holds 400 or 500, and 130 come in every day.
I have been in rescue for over 25 years. I've helped many of the different rescue groups. I've done everything from cleaning the kennels to giving the puppies their shots and medicine, to fundraising, to adopting and fostering. And I finally realized there is no way we can adopt our way out of this, we cannot foster our way out of this, that we have a severe overpopulation problem. And 4 years ago, when I got a call from Michael Rosenberg, he came up with an easy, brilliant solution. And that was, everybody is responsible.
I said, what do we need to do to fix it? How do we solve this problem? And I'm thinking, stop sign, right? You get a stop sign, you get the stop sign, you solve the problem. So he said, well, we need money. How much money do we need? Well, I don't know. It'd be a lot towards spay and neuters, also education programs, surrender programs, rescue group programs. I didn't even know, like I said, I didn't even know what rescue groups were. So I said, just tell me how much we need. And that's when he did a calculation. They did a calculation at Animal Services, came up with $20 million. And I was very clear that I like to solve the problem. I don't want to get, if you look at this as a leaky roof, it's not get 5 new buckets. It's put a brand new roof, reinforce the roof, solve the problem. If we're going to do it, let's solve the problem once and for all. 30 years is enough of this. So they came up with $20 million. He said, where are you going to get $20 million? I said, well, it's a community problem. This animal problem is a community problem. It affects all of us. So let the community participate in the solution.
When we brought this to the commissioners and the mayor, they saw that this was a win-win situation. They knew that we're spending so much more to kill our animals. It's $300 to kill when it's only $65 to spay and neuter. And in a couple years, we won't even have this overpopulation problem.
Every year, over 6 million unwanted, abandoned dogs and cats enter animal shelters in the U.S. Sadly, much of the funding assigned to combat the problem of overpopulation goes towards euthanization. Nearly half the animals that enter the shelters don't make it out alive.
Animal rights, to me, it simply means preventing cruelty to animals. I became involved in this just because I can't stand to see somebody be cruel to an animal, or be cruel to a child, or be cruel to an old person, or be cruel to anybody, really. So to me, it's simply about cruelty, and I can't stand cruelty, and it's just something that needs to be opposed and not allowed. So to me, it's very simple. Overpopulation is a problem, and just like human overpopulation is a problem, they both exist, just like hunger and illiteracy and poverty. This year, in 2017, the New York Times ran a full-page story about stray dogs. And the New York Times put the number at 750 million stray dogs.
In 2007, founder of the No-Kill Advocacy Center, Nathan Winograd, authored a controversial book, Denying Pet Overpopulation. Winograd places the blame of overpopulation on mismanagement of shelters, which, in his estimation, leads to overcrowding. The no-kill theory stands against most animal advocates' fundamental belief that animal overpopulation is a real problem.
If we don't spay and neuter, we are not going to solve this problem. I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, I know that. I mean, look what it takes just for an exotic invasive to get involved in the wilds here. Think about domesticated animals, that they're so much more plentiful out in the streets. We can't stop that. It's monetarily, physically impossible to build enough shelters, to build enough homes, to find enough homes for all of these animals that continue to reproduce uncontrolled out in our streets.
More than anything else, I think it's become a public health issue in our communities. And we understand that making sure the pets are vaccinated, they're well taken care of, they grow up in loving homes is important to everybody in our community. Spaying and neutering is absolutely critical to control the pet population, to have healthy pets. And most people are well educated on the subject. In addition to that, there's a financial reason why we want to participate. And that is our communities are spending an enormous amount of money killing pets. If we could control the population, we'd spend a lot less money and have a lot less grief about having to euthanize pets.
Motivated by the general consensus of the ills of animal overpopulation, the Pets Trust movement was born and began their journey into the sometimes complicated, murky waters of local government.
When the idea for the Pets Trust was hatched at the end of 2011, a meeting was called at the Biltmore Hotel by Mike Rosenberg and Rita Schwartz, who had sent out feelers into the rescue community, which is vast and varied and made up of people who can be extremely doctrinaire and opinionated about how rescue animals should be handled and what rescue really means. I had been covering all things animal at the Herald for many, many years, including animal services, and I knew well how fractious this community could be. And I remember going to that first meeting at the Biltmore and thinking, these people are just going to kill each other. You know, there's no way they can ever agree on a big picture project, because the arcane nature of what one cat rescue does compared to what another cat rescue does, or what one dog rescue does compared to how it was just mind-boggling. And at the end of that meeting, even though there were many questions and there was a little bit of back and forth, a coalition was born around a brand new idea for saving animals in Miami-Dade County.
The Pets Trust name was adopted from similar trust efforts set up in Miami-Dade County, the Children's, the Homeless Trust. A trust is a dedicated source of funding established by a special voters' referendum. After meeting with several commissioners and Mayor Jimenez, it was decided to put forth a straw ballot question to Miami-Dade voters asking for a special tax to create a fund that would improve animal services, which included the decreased killing of dogs and cats, the funding of free and low-cost spay-neuter programs, low-cost veterinary care, and pet ownership educational programs.
Resolution placing a non-binding straw ballot question on the general election ballot in Miami-Dade County, Florida, to be held on Tuesday, November 6, 2012, for the purpose of submitting to the electors of Miami-Dade County whether they support the County Commission increasing the countywide general fund millage by 0.1079 mils to fund improved animal services programs in the county. Item 2A.
I'd like to introduce Dee Chess. She's the founder of Friends Forever Rescue, and she just rescued this little puppy right out front.
Thank you. Right out front the door here?
Yes.
Come here, buddy. You're going to run the meeting with me.
You have to pass it down.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so cute.
Look at you.
So cute. What kind of
Ladies and gentlemen, can you see how beautiful?
I have been involved in pet rescue most of my life. I see the hard work the volunteers put into their organizations, and if they are lucky, 500 pets get adopted in a year. It's never ending. The number always rises and never decline. What about the thousands that don't get homes? What about the ones that are euthanized because there are just too many? A day doesn't go by that I don't think about how many innocent animals are being taken. 1 minute a beautiful, lively creature full of love, next being euthanized for something as simple as lack of space.
I'm probably the most naive person in Dade County. I just believe that all our elected officials just are there to just do good things. And so I just believe we had to educate them about the problem, and they would understand that since they're here to do good things, they would just agree. So we went to, we made appointments with commissioners to see if they would put it on the ballot and sponsor this program. And I think about the third commissioner we went to was Commissioner Sally Hayman. And she just jumped right away. Yes, let's put this on the ballot. This is great.
So I'm happy to sponsor it. It's a straw ballot. It will be in November. It'll be up to the trust to educate the community on its validity. Thank you very much.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah.
The referendum question presented to Miami-Dade voters was a non-binding resolution. This was because Florida's statute prevents local voters from raising their own property taxes. On July 17, 2012, the Miami-Dade County Board of County Commissioners unanimously voted to include the ballot question on the November election of that year. The question was written by county attorneys. Animal activists and rescuers throughout the county quickly got behind the initiative. It was an important moment for those that had for years been involved in animal welfare.
Come on! Woof, 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 woof. A lot of people help people. My motto or my whatever slogan, people have conscious choice, animals don't. They rely on us. They're here because of us, and we fail them and let them down. And we're all they got. So whereas people can take care of themselves, these guys can't. So I really don't care what people think or say. I don't live my life for other people. These guys are my passion. Saving their lives is my passion.
We all have our personal beliefs about what's most important in our life. I've always believed that animals' rights are because they don't have a voice in our community, and most often they're the most vulnerable, need the most help. And you see, and there's the least amount of programs and funding and help for them.
Like most people, I became aware of Pets Trust when they were campaigning to get it passed on the ballot. I saw the cute little pictures of this dog, you know, the little mascot dog of the Pets Trust, the signs everywhere, the social media online, you know, everybody sending to vote for it. And I kept thinking, God, Rima, you're an attorney, you love animals, you got to do more in this life. And then when I saw that coming, I said, oh, okay, I might not have been very instrumental in this, but look, somebody's doing it. Thank God it's happening. Wow, this is going to happen. The Pets Trust, this is a great thing.
Part of Mike's creativity is that he thinks of stuff that no sane person would think of. So he decided he was going to spend a weekend in a cage at Animal Services. He was going to be the dog. So it's a natural, you know, it's a publicity stunt, unabashed. And he did it, and people came by and they talked to him and they got their consciousness raised, and news organizations came by and did that, and that, I think, began to put the effort on the national radar. When you think about a living creature being in that bleak cage and then being hauled off to die through no fault of its own, it's a pretty sobering message.
I learned that we kill 20,000 animals a year. We've been doing it for decades. 60 or 70 animals every single day are killed or taken out of these cages, and they're killed. And every day another 100 or 120 are coming in. So we kill and bring in more, and we kill, we bring in more. It's time to stop that. I thought when I walked out on that Sunday night, I'd be the only living thing in that shelter, because the word would have been out like incredible. So what was the real number? About 120 were adopted by the time I left on Sunday night. And Animal Services was really happy, because they said usually for a weekend it's like 30 or 40. So wow, we did 4 times the numbers. So I felt terrible. I left, and there's all the dogs and the cats, the same ones are all there. And what was worse, Monday night, I called up to see how many animals came in. There's another 135 came in. It's just started all again. I had already experienced an animal that I adopted from Animal Services dying, and so I've been going there and I've been seeing what it was like. And the only room that I wasn't allowed to go in was the room where they kill the animals. And I can imagine it, but I thought that if I'm going to be one of the leaders of this mission, I needed to see it all. I certainly saw dogs get adopted, and I saw animals immediately love. I mean, it was amazing to watch it. Somebody comes in and adopts a dog, and boom, love. That's unbelievable. And so I wanted to see that part, but it took, before I even asked to do it, it took about a month. I'm kind of sensitive and emotional with things, and I didn't know how bad it was going to affect me if I went in there, because I didn't know what was going on in that room. I mean, it's very scary. It's locked, it's closed, stay out, keep out. So I decided, whatever it is that goes on in that room, I really should see it, because that's part of the mission, and I need to feel that part, always reminding me, pushing me forward. No matter when the battle that's going to be ahead, I just need that. So they arranged for me to go in there, and I was in there for 3 hours, and the things you never forget are the first dog that came in. I watched how they took him out of a cage on a leash. He thinks he's coming home with me. And so he's jumping and playing, and so we go into the room, and they pat him and stuff, and somebody holds him and turns his head sideways, and they take a shot, and they stick it in his paw, and he just, his tail's wagging like this, and he's playing, and this is what I'll never forget. And it goes slower and slower, and just collapsed, and the body fluids come out. That's one, with 60 more to go. That's one.
Pet trust is more for the spayed and neuter. For the $15 that they were gonna charge every household, they would have made, what, 20 million or whatever else, and I think it was, what, 13 million or something that they were gonna put towards spayed and neuter. I mean, that's big.
Rescues right now are full. They have no room for big dogs. A lot of people down here dump bigger dogs. They take in puppies, they get rid of the older dogs, they dump them everywhere. They kill them, they poison them, they shoot them, kids run them over on purpose. We go out every day, we feed them, and we try and take in the ones we can, and rescues from out of state offer to come down and take them, but that's our only choice at this time. There's just no rescues down here because everybody's full. I think the Pets Trust is a good idea. I mean, Dade County is euthanizing all these dogs and saying that they're not euthanizing dogs, and the county needs help. We're not getting help from anybody. We're not getting help from mayors. We're not getting help from anybody. We're basically on our own down here.
It is a community problem. You know, for some reason, somewhere there's a lack of communication and people are no longer caring for, whether you consider it property or a part of your family, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to be responsible for it. And somewhere along the way, that communication and that responsibility, people are just washing their hands of it.
So our mission has been trying to work with animal services, yet at the same time now we need to focus on these strays, whether they're coming from the Redlands, being tied to our fence, picked up in the middle of US 1, down deep in Kendall, where have you. So it's constantly a juggling act because these populations are coming from everywhere. and we don't receive government assistance. So when we have to go to animal control and rescue a dog, we're paying for that dog. They have different programs in place, but a lot of them don't support the organization until the dog is adopted out. But if you put $1,000, $2,000 into the animal and the dog dies, it wasn't adopted out. And it didn't die on their list, it died on our list. So it's a constant battle of emotions and politics, and it's a very sensitive topic for many, but there needs to be more assistance from our local community in order for places like us to survive rather than just getting a pat on the back at the end of the day.
On November 6, 2012, the question was finally on the ballot. The will of Miami-Dade voters was officially registered. The results were clear and surprising to many political analysts. Animals were a priority.
It was a presidential election year, and Hispanics have a history of going out, especially Cuban Americans, of going out and voting heavily in presidential election years. So I decided that my biggest contribution would be to get the Hispanic American community informed about what it was. I enlisted the help of a former anchor woman, very highly regarded person. We went to so many media outlets, maybe 16, TV, radio, newspapers, everywhere. And we always told the truth. This is a tax. It was a very small tax that would amount to $20 for the average homeowner. And I worked very hard, but I also worked at the polls during early voting and during election day. And I remember, you know, as people go up, I had my cards with Pets Trust and Vote for the Pets Trust. And I approached a gentleman. He was a Hispanic gentleman. And I said, "Sir," and he said, "No, señora, thank you. I'm only here to vote for the president and for the tax for the puppies."
A big win for pet lovers and animal advocates in Miami-Dade County.
We're talking about voters who approved adopting that new tax that will help turn the county's animal shelter into a no-kill facility. 64% of you were in favor of the Pet Trust, and that's going to stop the killing of about 20,000 dogs and cats every year in the county. But as J.C. Birch explains, the ultimate decision now lies in the hands of the county commissioners.
No more barking about the ballot.
And so when we asked them, do you care about our animals? They said yes, and not only said yes, they're willing to invest in the animals.
64% of Miami-Dade voters agreed to take a bite out of their wallet with increased property taxes to fund the Pets Trust to support saving cats and dogs.
It's definitely going to help us save a lot of animals and really achieve those goals that we're trying to get to of no kill.
The director of Miami-Dade Animal Services knows the biggest problem facing the shelter is overpopulation.
And so this vote really demonstrated that people were willing to put their money where their mouth is. They're willing to tax themselves a greater amount in order to protect the health and well-being of animals.
We love Fido. We love Snowflake. They're our babies. And we don't like the idea of an ineffective shelter, a shelter where animals are kept perhaps for too long, a shelter that euthanizes, not when no-kill shelters are definitely the wave of the future, if they can be brought on board. And so this was a very progressive, and remains a very progressive initiative.
This is just a straw ballot measure. That means it has not passed yet. The county commission has to pass it. Now, if they do so, then this could be in the budget by 2013. Remember, homeowners, this will cost you roughly $20 a year, and this could become a model for other counties around the country. Calvin and Lori, this does not include the new shelter that's being built, and that will come around in 2014, but that has already been budgeted.
Interestingly, the Mayor Jimenez, when he ran for election in August elections, actually, if you add up the votes that he got in his 2 elections for mayor, it's still not as many as who voted for the Pets Trust in 2012. So the numbers don't lie, and we know that we had people who were overwhelmingly in support of this initiative, even more so than putting the mayor in office. But animals clearly are an area where we can find common agreement, regardless of party, race, ethnicity, or even income.
Days after the victory at the polls, the county commission's support of the plan ironically seemed to be wavering. Fearing a political backlash against increased taxes and the growing demands from some of the county's other social services, Mayor Carlos Jimenez and some key county commissioners began to retract their support for the initiative.
I want to be real clear in a couple of things. We've come a long way and we've done a lot of good work, and we're at the verge of making a lot of things happen for our animals in Miami-Dade County, especially in the no-kill situation, and that's what people put their vote up to do. And I'm very proud of the people because it was 70%, 65, well, I'm even exaggerated a little bit. All right, 65% plus that voted in favor of this. But we have a couple of issues that have come up in the last several days. Those issues are from people that are professional, groups, and others that feel that they had not been actually had the chance to give their opinion.
Politics happened, and politics happened in a couple of ways. One, right at the end, the Veterinarians Association realized that all this free, low-cost spay-neutering was going to cost them money. You know, why should someone pay $200, $300 to get an animal neutered at the retail vet when they can go to a mobile clinic somewhere and, you know, $15, $20 later, they're good to go. At that point, somebody threw into the mix of this the phrase brick and mortar. And that was a ploy to cast the spay-neuter effort as a business that would compete with the retail vets. There was never going to be new construction, brick and mortar, to set up clinics. There was going to be, you know, a rental warehouse someplace. There were going to be mobile units. But that took on a life of its own. Lobbyists got involved for the vets, and a powerhouse lobbyist got involved on behalf of the Pets Trust as well. This accompanying myth of the commissioners hearing from people that they were against this, and they hadn't understood what they had voted for, and they didn't understand that it was going to enable, you know, higher taxes, and baloney, as far as I'm concerned. I asked for cell phone records, I asked for emails, I asked for phone logs, and I actually got them from some of the commissioners, and there was no tsunami of objection anywhere to this.
A special meeting was set for the Public Safety and Animal Services Committee for June 12, 2013. The purpose of the meeting was to realign political interests and wipe away the spirit of what voters had supported at the polls.
I am not going to support a tax increase that is going for brick and mortar when we have all these facilities, all these partnerships, all these abilities from skilled people, motivated people, and committed people to engage.
We feel that these changes will maximize the utilization of currently underused facilities and resources in providing for the necessary spays and neuters to take place without taxpayer dollars being spent on bricks and mortar.
The way the question was written and was voted for many, I have received phone calls from people who told me, I didn't know I was voting to increase my taxes.
It was clear the commissioners and mayor had decided to backtrack from the agreed-upon plan. The strategies to low-cost spay and neuter devised by the Pets Trust were eliminated, as was the name Pets Trust itself.
I'll start at the beginning. The report begins on page 10 of the item. In places where it references voter approval of a straw ballot, the requested change was to change it to voter support of non-binding straw ballot. Another change is to, because as Commissioner, as you mentioned at the beginning, the word Pets Trust did not appear in the straw ballot language to avoid confusion. On page 11,
what started out as a collaborative effort quickly deteriorated. Lines were drawn in the sand, and political battles would be waged. What still remained uncertain was the fate of the animals in Miami Dade County.
The way the ballot languages are written, okay, they're written for whoever wants to pass it. You know, I said it when we were doing the dolphin stuff, and it's the same thing here. Nobody is going to vote to kill animals. It's just not going to happen. Okay? But we need to be crystal clear when we put this language here on what it means to the taxpayer. They have to at least know that this is going to cost them X amount of dollars to achieve what we want to achieve.
Suddenly the veterinarians appeared right before the final budget meeting where the mayor and the commissioners were going to decide if they were going to implement the Pets Trust or not. Now, they hadn't been involved during the election, before the election, and amazingly, I found out that they really hadn't been involved in anything in the past perhaps 30 years, while over 600,000 animals were being killed at the animal shelter. Where were the veterinarians? They certainly had to have known what was happening at the animal shelter, yet when people tried to create some sort of low-cost spay-neuter smaller programs, the veterinarians, they were there for that, to stop it. They felt that their business would be threatened if there was low-cost spay-neuter procedures taking place around the county.
I've been in vet in Dade County for about 30 years. And for years and years and years, I've been concerned about the pet overpopulation problem. As with most veterinarians, we're in the profession to save the lives of animals and to prevent suffering. However, for many, many years, there was always an impasse, a conflict between Miami-Dade County's animal services and the veterinarians. And for years and years and years, nothing really got done to the point where the animal overpopulation problem was being controlled. And nobody had come up with an idea to solve the problem. So what was needed was somebody to come up with a unifying idea that would unify the veterinarians, Miami-Dade County, and the pets rescue groups to try and solve the problem. Because the reality is that 2 cats over the course of 7 years, if 2 cats breed and their kitties breed, the number's astounding. You can have over, I mean, the figure varies, 400,000 stray animals in Dade County. The veterinarians and Dade County and the Pets Trust all had slightly differing ideas as to how to solve the problem. And I think that's why we needed an issue where voters were allowed to vote and say, this is what we really want. We want one unifying organization to solve it. And that's why close to 500,000 people voted to be willing to give $20 per household to solve the problem. People walk outside, they see cats starving. They walk down the street, stray dogs are running around. The problem needed to get solved.
It was the first time I voted because I was just getting my citizenship. So I became a citizen, I was so excited, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be able to vote for the Pets Trust, and then nothing happened. She said, I was voting in Hialeah because I used to live back there, and everyone was saying, let's vote, los perros, let's vote for them. And it was so exciting, and then nothing happened. And it's not, oh, nobody knew what they're voting. Oh yeah, they knew what they were voting for. And they wanted, yes, the same thing. It was a long line, hours, and everyone was talking about the dogs. And everyone was so excited what they were voting for, and change was gonna happen. Nothing happened.
Well, that's one of my dogs I've been feeding for a while. I'm afraid he's been shot. We have it happen often. And not having a place to bring him to a rescue, we have to leave him here. There's no funding, so we haven't the money to bring him in or foster. So now he's dead. What do we do?
Next item is 3H, resolution accepting the Animal Services Department report of recommendations for attaining a no-kill shelter.
The straw ballot language that was proposed to the voters, why didn't it put the actual dollar amount that it would ultimately cost the taxpayers?
The total that would be yielded was 18 to 20 million, and I believe it was about $18 a household. I don't have that a specific figure, but I believe that's what it was. And there was a up to amount on the millage rate, which was .1079 mils.
Have we looked at other ways other than raising taxes to be able to fulfill this no-kill desire?
We trying to do all types of programs within our resources. I think I could do a little bit more, but I don't think that we can achieve that number of 90% without the additional resources. I think the money is needed to get to that goal.
Mayor Carlos Jimenez and Animal Service Director Alex Munoz distanced themselves from the proposal they once championed. Suddenly, the $20 million figure they recommended to address animal overpopulation was no longer necessary. Just over 2 months after Animal Services Director Munoz cited the $20 million figure, Mayor Jimenez told the Miami Herald editorial board he only needed $4 million.
You know, I backed off on the general fund, on the countywide with the Pets Trust. We didn't need the $20 million, and we spoke to the Animal Services. Okay, what is it that we need to do in order to comply with the wishes of the people? And they came back and says it's about $4.5 million. And so we said, okay, roll that into like I said, I had more flexibility with the countywide. You can do more things, and so that's what we did. And so that's off the table.
The original plan called for $20 million, and that number was given to us by the head of Animal Services and that entire department, who determined after a 2-week study, this is the amount we would need to do all the problems to solve the problem. $20 million, that was the number. And it was completely detailed where it was going to go. 3 days before the commission meeting where they were going to determine how much budget was needed, the mayor said Animal Services told him he can do it for a little over $4 million. Now, I don't know where that number came from, because months and months and months and months before that, the number was $20 million, and all the programs that were involved added up to $20 million to truly solve the problem. So the mayor said they could solve it for the $4 million. Well, he's completely wrong, as you can see by the results of what's happening today.
500,000 people voted for this. I didn't think it would pass. I voted for it. I was not involved in the election in any way.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I come before you today as one of nearly 500,000 people who voted for the Pets Trust. I want to make it very clear that I was keenly aware of what I was voting for.
I don't care.
And with all due respect, for anyone to suggest otherwise borders on insulting. This issue received the type of overwhelming support that I think it's safe to say any one of you would love to receive in a future election. Yet we are still here today trying to convince you to support it. Countless individuals have worked tirelessly behind the scenes doing everything that was asked of them to go through the arduous and often frustrating process of getting this issue onto a ballot so that the public could vote and send a clear message to you, the elected officials, that we believe in this and we are willing to pay for it.
It was one of the greatest up and down feelings I've ever had in my life, to have that pass and say, my gosh, we got a plan here. We're going to be a role model, not just for Florida, but for the country in this whole incredible effort. And then to have people say that people didn't understand, I've never heard of that in my entire life. I've lived here most of my life here in South Florida. I've never heard anybody say, oh, they didn't really know what they were voting for. I've never heard a politician say that when he gets elected, oh, you know what? I need to do that again because I don't know if they knew what they were voting for. It's one of those things that really floored me.
One of the most challenging responsibilities that we have as elected officials is to balance the desires of our residents to pay less in taxes with the desire to maintain or actually improve services. We must also give due consideration to our hardworking employees in this decision-making process. However, our local economy just hasn't improved enough to make that possible at this point. I've listened to the people. This is my responsibility as the mayor, to listen to all the people of our community.
They simply aren't ready to pay more for government services right now.
The Pets Trust initiative was temporarily derailed.
It was shocking that they didn't enforce it after they had said before, if the people want it, we'll put it in place and we'll implement it. And it didn't happen, and it was the biggest betrayal of voters' will that I've ever seen, that I've been personally involved with.
If any of you had won,
it was just political cowardice and short-sightedness and lack of leadership.
People thought, and a lot of people, not just advocates, but average people on the street, that pet lovers, non-pet lovers, people that are paying attention, people that are not paying attention, a cross-section of the community that voted for that, almost 500,000 people voted for that. They didn't think it was a straw poll. They thought their vote mattered and it counted. And I believe there's a big amount of those people that might not have even otherwise voted, some of them, some of the advocates. So they drive these people to the polls for a cause that they believe in. Others were there anyway and saw the sensibility of the vote, and it was almost, I mean, it was just overwhelming. And so at that point, the will of the people should prevail, irregardless of what political agendas or behind-the-scenes maneuvering and power brokering is going on. To me, it's shameful. We should all be ashamed of ourselves, and if we don't take a stand against it, then we're just part of it. By allowing it to happen, we're complicit in it, then we're part of the problem and not part of the solution.
When people approach me and say, you know, they want to get involved in county government and they have an issue that, you know, they want to resolve and make better, well, I tell them, good luck. And it's not an easy task. Be prepared to spend all of your time, all of your resources, and you're going to get knocked down over and over and over. For us, it's made us stronger, and just don't give up the fight. And eventually, we know it will get done. Nothing's easy, so if it's worth the fight, keep fighting.
Why I'm gonna kill my dog, and you should kill yours too. An open letter to Miami Dade County. My name is Robbie Campbell. I live in Miami, Florida, and I have a dog named Penny. She's my best friend. I rescued her from the street, abused, homeless, and sick. And in spite of all the cruelty and indifference people had shown her in the past, she gave me her trust and her love. What an idiot, because now I'm gonna kill her.
It's a dangerous precedent. If anyone is allowed to get away with throwing away a single vote, that's not what we do in this country, either in this county or this country. And it's a very dangerous precedent, and it has to be brought to the light, because most people, I'm sure, think that what they voted for was implemented because their vote counted. And when they find out, I find that when they find out that their vote did not count, they're pretty outraged.
We can make a change. Don't these people know votes don't mean shit to?
After the disappointment of the mayor's decision to not implement the initiative as proposed to Miami-Dade voters, the Pets Trust vowed to continue.
If I'm correct, you originally were going to propose an increase, as reported by the Herald, in the millage rate, and then you backed down.
Yes, sir. I certainly did. I proposed a flat rate. I will not increase taxes to the residents of Miami-Dade County.
Okay. This is bad management. Let's talk about the pet trust. Let's talk about the pet trust. A good, effective, elected official follows the wishes of his constituents. 65% of the public voted for this. Why do you ignore the public? I asked, why did you ignore the wishes of the public?
65% of the people voted for no kill to try to obtain a aspirational goal, and we've increased the budget of that department by 40%. You've already seen what we've done without raising taxes, and so I think we can do this without raising taxes to the people of Miami-Dade County.
No, you're not doing what the voters asked you to do. They voted for that. Okay.
As the group intensified its criticism of Mayor Jimenez, the mayor fired back and questioned the founders of the Petros' motives in pushing forth the plan.
Controversy, though. It was a feeling that the voters approved and said yes, and it wasn't a big number, like almost 500,000 voters.
Right.
And then that sort of the county, and under your leadership, you kind of stepped back and said, yeah, well, they approved it, but it wasn't required, so it didn't go that way. Why didn't you go?
Because I didn't think we had to raise taxes, and it was a straw ballot. And so at the time, we felt that we didn't have to raise taxes in order to accomplish the same things. And we have accomplished the same things without raising taxes, but they want to raise taxes anyway. So
They being the Pets Trust
yeah,
organizers?
absolutely. And by the way, why do they want to raise taxes? Okay? And who was going to control that money? All right? So that was an issue also with me. And so at the end of the day, we accomplished what the Pets Trust wanted without raising taxes. Maybe their problem is that they were wrong, that we didn't have to raise taxes in order to accomplish it. Maybe, thank you, Pets Trust, for bringing it to our attention and for forcing us, or, making us focus on the issue and allocate more resources to it. That the Pets Trust should be thankful for. But this thing that somehow that we have to spend, $20 million more in order to accomplish what we've already accomplished, actually, to me, doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It was the right goal. It was the wrong procedure. It deceived the voters into thinking that we were bound to increase the taxes, but it could have very easily been solved. Having consulted the people with the numbers on the ballot question, we could say, let's find the money somewhere in the budget. $5 billion general operating budget, $10 or $15 million additional needed. It's 1/5 of 1%. It's not a big deal. But the approach was, these people are malicious or radical, or they have their own agenda. They want jobs. To me, it didn't seem like they did at all.
There is going to be an advisory board of approximately 13 people from this community. It's non-paid board members. These people are all vested in the animal community. The head of the Veterinary Association, the head of the Humane Society, the head of a rescue group, all people that are invested have invested their lives in helping animals. The $20 million fund would be supervised by these people. So the fund would be in a special separate bank account that the county would set up, because it needs to be dedicated funding. You can't just hope the money's going to be there. It's dedicated funding that's always there to help solve the problem. Those people would decide where the money was spent. Yes, there's a rumor, horrible rumor, that I personally was going to get the money, or Rita Schwartz and I were going to get the money. How would they even do that? Is it a personal check, a gift card? I mean, how would that have even happened?
My ex-wife actually rescued a couple, tiny little things. I didn't want them in the house, but they stayed. One of them passed. I didn't know at the time that they were in an age that it was so crucial for them to be taken care of by their mother. And we have to bottle feed them every 2 hours, and finally she made it. And all of a sudden I realized how fragile they were, and even though I'm very short-sighted, I could spot a cat anywhere. So I started bringing food in my car, so whenever I saw a cat, I would get out of the car and feed them. The whole thing kept increasing, and all of a sudden I was doing 5 different colonies. 4 o'clock in the morning, I was still out there feeding cats. There was a point where I couldn't do it anymore because I lost my job, and I couldn't afford it. It's very expensive, actually, to do this. Each bag, you use 3 bags, and each bag is about $13, $14, plus 8 cans. That's another $8 right there. Every day, you add it up. It takes a toll, but you can't stop. They're waiting. They're waiting for you and the county. At least I know that they won't be hungry tonight.
In 2014, Petros activists formed the Animal Power Party, a political action committee to raise funds and directly challenge their political foes. The Animal Power Party, or the APP, as they call themselves, was effective in several political races, fundraising and campaigning for political underdogs who supported their platform.
Well, we had, of course, the extremely well-organized effort to establish a Pets Trust initiative, and so I was the next election after that. So there was a lot of pent-up frustration and anxiety about really doing something meaningful for the pets, for the animals in our district.
When I first ran for mayor, I was coming out of nowhere, and of course I didn't get any endorsements, and I was so honored to have the Pets Trust to endorse me. And I went all over town and I said, listen, the dogs and cats of Miami-Dade County have spoken, and they have the best noses of all, and they have endorsed me for mayor of Miami Beach. And when I won, obviously, I kept saying I ran, and I won because of the dogs and cats in Miami-Dade County. For me, it was a very big and important endorsement.
In 2016, the successful political surge created by the animal activists came to a halt as they were unable to unseat Mayor Jimenez. Under Mayor Jimenez and Animal Director Alex Muñoz's mandate, no-kill statistics at Animal Services radically improved. Some animal advocates questioned the veracity of the numbers.
I think that the officials realized that this was a very hot-button issue. It was a big issue. Obviously, a lot of people were there, were angry about it, and this was not something that was going to go away. So, in part, what was done was there were some changes in the way the numbers were reported. Before this time, before this initiative, the Director of Animal Services would come out and say, post numbers, realistically, you know, our save rate for cats are maybe 12%. We euthanize high 80s, maybe low 90s% of cats. Dogs realistically are about 50%. And all of a sudden, we hear that the numbers, the save rate, the numbers of animals that are being saved in our county has jumped to in the 80s and 90%, and that was very troubling. And while it may have calmed people down, because people only know what they hear, while it may have calmed people down and calmed the issue down somewhat, it was very troubling because it didn't accurately reflect what was going on. When we limit admission to the shelter, when we take animals that are in the shelter and ship them out to other places, maybe other states, those are temporary measures, and sometimes they're necessary and they help for the short term, but the welfare of our animals is not improved by those things. And more importantly, for maybe every animal or two animals that comes into the shelter, another animal is dumped on the streets.
I think there's no accurate way to describe the current situation of our community pets in need in Miami-Dade County at the moment. Animal Services has so many systematic policies in place to alter their statistics, to turn pets away at the door. There's no tracking system of how many deferred pets end up dumped on the streets. There's no tracking system of how many cats get turned away. There's no one internally who is still there who could track the number of, injuries that are being sustained, the number of pets that are dying in cages. There's, pets that are labeled as escaped. We have no idea what happens to those. No one investigates those. I think it's really impossible to say how badly our animals have it right now in our county because we have no transparent way of assessing the situation as it currently stands.
I looked online, I heard you guys were open around 11 or something like that, so I figured I'd run over.
Yeah, we don't have space, so you would have to come in tomorrow. We don't have the capacity, so we're going to start intaking tomorrow again from 10 to 4.
Tomorrow? I can't hold the dogs for that long.
Yeah, the thing is we don't have the space for it.
This is public shelter, public place. They tell me this is the only place that I know of. I'm not leaving. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Leave on the street?
We can't take them in. If you want, I can give you other options, which is looking online for the rescues and other options.
Okay, well, you can try to drop it off in the Humane Society. When did you find it? I found it about an hour ago, and then
It was running on US 1.
This is the first place I looked when I looked it up. Just like I looked up on the internet for good places. Internet, anything else. But right now, I just don't have the capacity right now to hold anything else.
How's that possible, though?
Sorry?
How is it possible you don't have space?
Do you know how many we receive every day?
So while we have Director Munoz on the line, is what Michael Rosenberg's saying true? Are you limiting admission to the shelters now?
First of all, we take in animals galore. So in 2011, we took in 28,000 animals. Last year, we took in 29,000 animals. So the number really hasn't gone down.
But Director Munoz, is there a limit right now? Are you all practicing a quota system or a limit?
No,
yes or no?
No limit.
There is no limit. So how many animals would you then estimate, Director Munoz, just in the last calendar year, how many animals do you think have been turned away? How many attempts have been made to bring animals to the shelter that the shelter, because of capacity reasons, has said we cannot take them in right now? Can you put a number on it?
In the last year that I know of, none.
I have a cat that I'm moving in a couple of days. What do I do if I can't keep my cat? We'll bring it here.
Yeah, unfortunately right now we don't have any space. All we do here is TNR. What that is, that we spay and neuter them, give them vaccinations, keep them on the theater.
Okay, you have TNR now? You don't take cats?
Right now, unfortunately, we don't have any space.
Oh, what do I do? What do I do with the cat?
Yeah, let me give you this guy's number. His name is Bernie. He'll probably take in your cat, but you're gonna have to call him and leave him a message, and he'll call you back.
Oh, okay, so a guy named Bernie will take in the cat?
Well, there's a new program being used by many local animal shelters designed to cut back on the cat population that has really skyrocketed due to constant breeding. But now cats that have been humanely saved instead of being euthanized are roaming South Florida streets like they own them. A trip down to South Miami in this neighborhood right off Lejeune Road reveals cats in yards, cats on cars, cats in the street, and cats pretty much
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. I think every day it gets a little worse here. The whole neighborhood's just crowded with cats.
He doesn't even own a cat, but he's paying the price for a controversial county-funded program. Well, you know Miami-Dade Animal Services traps the cats, they spay and neuter, and then they bring them back here.
Correct.
The TNR program, which stands for Trap, Neuter, Return, began in July of 2012 at Miami-Dade Animal Services. How many do you have at your house?
62.
Cats cover every inch of Bernie Alfonso's home. Are those your personal cats?
Those are all from Miami-Dade Animal Services. I would say an average of maybe 2 to 3 cats a week.
Anyone who brings a cat for TNR and they don't want their cat to go back to their neighborhood, Animal Services takes them to the sanctuary, which is Bernie's house. Bernie's house and the neighborhood surrounded by his house has thousands and thousands of cats. These cats are in horrible, horrible condition. They die horrendous deaths. They get hit by cars. The neighbors let their dogs out to kill them. They get poisoned, shot. And this is all, once again, to make their numbers look good.
Thing is this, sir. We have a large population of stray cats in the county. Miami-Dade County, they don't pick up cats, by the way. The only time they'll pick up cats is when they're injured or dead on the public right-of-way. But remember, we have limited space, and I mean, there's about 500,000 cats out there. We're being bombarded, and I'm literally bombarded. And I'm talking about cats. Well, I mean, I don't even want to talk about cats because since cats are free-roaming animals, it is so bad, sir, that we're not even taking, we just give them a vaccination and put them out. So this is out of control.
In July 2016, a new animal shelter was inaugurated in Miami-Dade County. The bigger, state-of-the-art facility was funded as part of a bond referendum passed by Miami-Dade voters in 2004. It took Miami-Dade County 14 years to build the facility.
It's beautiful, long awaited. It's been in the books since at least 2004. And I don't know what kind of mayor can act like he's so proud of himself that he didn't implement that immediately when he took office. 2014 was the definite targeted date it should have been open, meaning after all the procrastinating, all the county dragging, ridiculous bureaucracy, and all of a sudden, within a couple of months to an election, of a mayoral election, oh, what a coincidence. We're going to have a grand opening and invite all the world to see what a great mayor I am and what a great animal director I am, because we're going to strategically plan to open this shelter as close to an election year so that all the world can see that I'm the best mayor and I love my animals. And people sadly are fooled. They had the press there, they were eating it up. Because people see what they see, people see what publicity shows. People don't sit there and dig into the details of what really happened. People don't know that this was in the book since 2004.
In response to a growing number of accusations of abuse and errant bookkeeping at the Animal Services Department, in the summer of 2017, Mary Cagle, the Inspector General of Miami Dade County, issued a report on the state of animal services. While allegations of neglect and mistreatment of animals were discredited, the report found inconsistencies and irregularities in the way the department tabulated its figures.
Generally speaking, there is some back and forth with the department, and in the 3.5 years since I've been here, I've found that it can be a very candid exchange because we are external to it all. We are an independent body, and our motivation is to add value to the county. In this case, there was a little bit of push there, more so than I would say sometimes in some of the other things we've looked at. So there was interaction and we did go back and forth, but if you've read the report, you can see where we notated that there were situations where we didn't feel that it was as candid as we would have liked it to have been.
Of most concern in Inspector General Cagle's report of animal services is the reporting of the disposition of animals and the reconciliation of numbers upon the euthanization. In both cases, the Animal Services Department showed reluctance to modify their practices.
Government should be transparent. I mean, people have a right to know what's going on. And so we basically, when we get complaints, we go in, we look, we follow the facts and the evidence wherever it takes us, and out of that comes a final report with recommendations. But it's a process where anybody can see what we're doing, they can see the evidence, everything becomes a public record at the end, and we continue to publicly do this follow-up in terms of the recommendations.
While the political battle wages on, as some question the health of democracy in South Florida, the condition of stray animals in Miami-Dade County remains critical.
I pretty much call out any commissioner or the mayor when they speak about democracy. It's selective democracy that they have. So when you call them on it, they cannot answer. So, I don't know what they think in their seat. It'd be interesting to ask, if those commissioners or mayor could say, how in the world can you use the word democracy for only the things that you want when you want to win a point, but not for something you didn't agree with? I don't have an answer for that. Their attitude personally doesn't bother me. I've come to expect it. That's the kind of elected officials we have. That's what we have. And so rather than inviting in people that have an opposing view or an intelligent opposing view, or an opposing view with 500,000 people that voted for something, they keep the door closed. That's the type of government we have. And if they do that to me, you can imagine what they do to people that don't knock more than once or twice. I knock 100 times. And so it makes people give up on their government. And rightly so.
I live by the words that on the back of one of the Pets Trust t-shirts that says, as long as animals have no voice, you will never stop hearing mine.
Born of this ground, an American town. My roots are the roots of this tree. Her leaves brush the sky like my head held high, proud and free. I was raised on this story, an American glory. But I've seen you sell our story for shame. Political players playing your political game. But I will not be broken. That story still burns bright like a flame. So here I stand on sovereign land, like our father's dreamed it could be. A neighbor's trust, a helping hand, even though sometimes we may disagree. Maybe you thought I'd stay voiceless. Well, don't expect this lion to bow. I won't give up my choices. This I vow. Don't you dare tell me I'm voiceless now. Imagine your rage, locked in a cage, and you realize your voice is not heard. Imagine the fury, judge, justice, and jury deferred. You think you're a king, but it don't mean a thing if the people can't believe in your word. I still believe in the dream, and believe you me, we won't be deterred. No, I will not surrender. You won't believe the passion you've stirred. Fathers dreamed it could be. A neighbor's trust, a helping hand, even though sometimes we may disagree. Maybe you thought I'd stay voiceless. Well, don't expect this lion to bow. I won't give up my choices. This I vow. Don't you dare tell me I'm voiceless now. No, I won't give up on choices. This I vow. Don't you dare tell me I'm voiceless now.